bring an audience in. Customize your speech. Get the audience involved and get the audience thinking, wow, that's a message just for me. Get the audience thinking it's a personal message. And personal is powerful. Personal messages are powerful. Think of it this way. The difference between a personal message and a general message, well, let's say somebody says, hey, somebody's house is on fire. You might think, that's horrible. Maybe you think, I had to do something about it. Maybe you think, I'm going to help somebody out, give them some money. You might go a little farther. Oh, maybe some people I can put them up in my home. All sorts of things you might do. But in general, you're just thinking, oh, it's horrible for them. Maybe I'll do something to help them out, some money or something like that, or just give them sympathy. It's kind of general. But if someone says, hey, your house is on fire. Whoa, my house is on fire. What am I going to do? Quick, help me. Look, the police says I'm going to help them out. Get some water, throw it on there. When your house is on fire, you get really involved. Very much involved. And that's the difference. You can have a great speech, you've memorized everything, and the audience thinks, wow, that speaker really had that thing well memorized. They really knew exactly what they were talking about. Pretty impressive. Or you have a customized speech, and the audience thinks, whoa, I'd better do something. I'd better take some action. My house is on fire. I got to make something happen here. That's the power of a customized speech. It's the difference between, well, okay, whatever, and, whoa, this is personal, gonna make it happen. The thing is, many speakers don't bother to customize their speech because it takes a little bit of work. It takes a little bit of thinking things out. And they don't want to do that. It's a bother, it's a problem, and it does. It takes a little bit of time, takes a little bit of thought, a little bit of effort. That's just the way it is. But if you don't do that, then the audience thinks, well, you know, whatever. Once you do customize your speech, then, hey, the audience thinks, wow, there's something there. There's definitely something there I want to make happen. That's the power. That's the power of customizing the speech. Once you make it happen, you make it powerfully happen, then it brings people in. So today you're going to learn about how to get that powerful customized speech. You're going to learn about two things you can do, two methods you can do, depending on your situation and your speech, to help you customize that speech. Because there are pretty much two possibilities. And depending upon which possibility you're facing, that'll determine the way you customize your speech. Different ways will take different approaches, but the effects will be powerful. You'll engage the audience, you'll pull them in, you'll interest people more. People are more likely to take action on what you're talking about, and more likely to tell to other people than if you don't customize your speech. The audience will think, wow, that's a message just for me. That's my message here. I'm going to take it, going to run with it, going to do something with it. That's the power of customization. However, there are mistakes most speakers make, and you're going to find out how to avoid those mistakes. The things speakers do that just really hurt the whole effect of the speech and just don't make the customization work. As a result, speeches fall apart. You're going to make sure that your speech doesn't fall apart in that way. And you'll find out how to do things right. Some ideas, techniques, methods to make sure when you're going through and customizing that speech, you do it the right way, the effective way. It's going to pull the audience in, involve them, get them interested. Customization is powerful, and learning how to do that makes you powerful. It helps you take charge of the speech. Once you take charge of the speech, take charge of the audience, then things start working out well. You start making that efficient, simple connection. And with a process, simple process to work through, it becomes easy and even enjoyable to be up there on stage. So you're going to learn about what to do in basic situation and what to do in a little bit of a different situation. So now you're going to learn about customizing that speech. mentioned there are two ways to do customization with speech. Two ways. You do one or the other. The first way is something that takes a little bit of work. If you don't do the work, you may end up in a little bit of trouble, especially if you're trying to do this. But if you do the work, that could be tremendously helpful, tremendously useful. Because it means that you're going to customize the speech in a way that's going to really work well with the audience. By doing a few simple things, doing a little bit of work, doing a little bit of digging, you're going to find out that, okay, this can work, this can be powerful. Once you start using it, you'll discover that this really does work. And the nice thing about it is it puts you in control of the situation, make sure things don't go weird on you. So it's a great way to customize. And that is planned customization. Planned customization. Quite simply, that's when you plan things out. When before you even get there to that event, wherever it is, whatever it is, you've planned things out. Now maybe you just put this thing together on your own. Maybe you're working with a meeting planner. One way or the other, if you've got a planned customization of your speech, you're going to want to talk to people. You want to talk to the people who are going to be in your audience, the sort of people who are going to be in the audience. Better yet, find people who actually will be in your audience. If you're working with a meeting planner, it's going to be pretty simple. You say, give me some names of some people who are going to be in the audience, and I'll interview them. And is it okay if I interview them and get some thoughts about what's going on? A little bit of mention what to interview them on. Right now, it depends on which people you get. If you're thinking, okay, Tim, great, I'm supposed to interview the audience. Who do I choose? Different speakers will use different methods. One method is if you want to get stories. So you get the people who have, the most respected people. The people who've been there, done that. The people everybody looks up to. That's one method. Use those people. So if you've got the respected people, the top people, and you can throw their names out, throw their stories out, then everybody there knows that big shot, whoever they are. Says, oh, yeah, okay, Bob Smith. Well, I know about Bob Smith. And this speaker knows about Bob Smith, so they must know what's going on. Then you get Bob Smith's story, which most likely a lot of the people there already know. But the fact that you know it as a speaker really says a lot for you. You're taking the effort, you're customizing. This speech is just for you. You know Bob Smith, the great things he does. Here's kind of a recap of the stuff you already know about. Here's what applies into my speech. So, could interview a guy who's really up there. Another method you can use is interview people who don't want to be there or don't particularly find it valuable or useful. Interview them. Now, they're tougher interviews, but if you can sell the people in those interviews, then you can sell the audience. That's a bit difficult, more of an interview situation, but it has its benefits too. So either interview the people who are really high up or interview the troublemakers or possible troublemakers. As mentioned, if you have a meeting planner who's helping you kind of coordinate the event, they'll be able to put you in touch with these people. If you're kind of doing it on your own, figure out who you're working through, and they kind of become your meeting planner and they can set you up with these people. Now you're thinking, okay, Tim, great, I got these people, but what questions do I ask? What should I talk about? Some simple questions you can ask is, if you want to get the stories, is what's a great thing that happened to you? Why are you at this company? What do you like most about this company? What's a challenge that you've had, and how did you overcome that challenge? Think of the basic interview questions you have and ask the people those questions. Basically, the idea is just to get them talking in a comfortable, supportive environment. What do you think is important and people need to know? What's your story? How did you get to this company? What's a challenge you had? How did you overcome the challenge? Those types of questions. Really useful. Then you get some stories. You get some stories, you can go out there and say, here's a great story. That's planned customization. So here's Bob Smith, you know him, he's got this great story, you may have heard it before. Go through the story. And Bob Smith knows the story, he tells it to everybody. Loves that story. So some people out there know it, some don't know it. But the ones who know it are impressed that you know Bob's story. The ones who don't know it now know Bob's story. Bob's spreading the word out there. Bob's happy. And Bob's a big deal. So that's one way to do it. The other way is to go with the people who just don't like you or maybe don't want to like you. Okay, well that's a challenge right there. How do you deal with those people? Well, you can say, well, what's an objection? What's the thing that you would like most to see? And what's the reason you think that this isn't useful? What's the reason you think that my speech is not going to be useful or not going to be helpful? What would you really like to see at this speech? What would it take to convince you that there is some value here? As mentioned, these people are tougher to sell. They already don't think it's valuable at all. Whatever you're talking about, they're not interested in. But if you can figure out where they're coming from, what their objections are, and answer those objections, you're pretty well suited in going to that particular talk. Those questions are going to be less about what's the story and more about getting at the person themselves. More about what are the issues they have, what are the problems, what are failures they've seen in previous speakers that maybe they expect you to make. What are some of the problems they've had? What are some of the issues they had maybe using the stuff you're talking about? Figure out the questions. It's hard questions because they don't like it. But if you convince those people who don't like it, that's powerful. That's really powerful there. So, planned customization of your speech. One way to do it, get stories. Talk to the mucky mucks, talk to the people everybody knows, the stories they love, get those stories, get them out there. Another way, talk to the people who really don't necessarily like it or you think might be troublemakers or problems and ask the meeting planner, they'll know, and then talk to the people, what are the problems? Well, how can I address those problems? What are issues you had before? Get in touch with those people. You can sell those people. You probably can sell anybody. And that's what you do with planned customization. But what about the other side? What do you do if you had planned everything out and your planned person just doesn't show up? Bob Smith isn't there. What do you do? Well, you might want to just say, well, I'm just going to keep doing what I was going to do. The problem about that, you do what you're going to do. Your person you're planning on isn't there. Bob Smith isn't there. The other people you're talking about aren't there. You bring up all these people who are at the company but not actually showing up to the event. You bring attention to the fact that these bigwigs didn't show up to your presentation. It could be a disaster. So instead, I'm going to do something different. I want to think on your feet. I want to make sure you know what to do when you have an unplanned customization. An unplanned customization is more exciting because you really have to be aware of everything that's going on in the event. If you're trying to do an unplanned customization and you don't know the other speakers before you, you don't know what's been said, you don't know really what's going on and what's really working and not working, then you got problems. To do an unplanned customization requires you to be very, very aware, not only of your own speech, but of every other speech that's going on. Quite often if you're presenting, maybe you're presenting at a conference, maybe you're presenting at something else, but there'll be a lot of other things in the agenda. Any one of those, which could be a situation where you could mention it again. When you bring back something that's been done before, it's called a callback. And in unplanned customizations, callbacks are your best friend. If you don't know what a callback is simply where you know something worked sometime, and so you use it again. You call back to it. The great thing about it is if something worked really, really well, you can just call back to that thing, and then you get all the laughs, all the interest, all the humor, all the whatever it was that that thing has, you get again, just by mentioning the name. That's the power or callback. So a simple thing you can do if somebody mentions something that went really, really well, a presentation, you just go through and you say, oh, by the way, and you somehow figure a way to take this subject and stick it into your speech, or just throw it out there. And people, they get it. They know, aha, I heard that before, it's funny then, mentioning it again, okay, it's funny again. It's an amazing thing about the way the mind works. It's just a little mention of something, and all of a sudden, boom, the whole thing's in front of you. You see the whole thing beginning to end, that really funny quote, that really funny moment, that really fascinating thing that happened before, boom, it suddenly happens again. Bit scatological example. If you don't know what that is, it'll become clear in just a moment. Scatological example from world champion speaker Darren LaCroix. He was out there performing on the stage, and before Darren went out, there was a horse act before him. And one of the horses took a large dump on the stage. And then, of course, you know, they went on and used the stage later. Darren had a point in his speech where he literally falls to the stage. He talks about falling in your face, and he does this part where he falls in his face. And he falls, and when he did it in the speech, he fell on his face. He sniffed the area in front of him, he says, and he asked, is this where the horse did it? Hilarious. The whole place broke up. They started laughing. They started cheering. It was a callback. Very simple callback. People know when he says, this is where the horse did it. People who had been there the whole time knew that a horse did do it somewhere on the stage. And maybe where Darren was. The point being is suddenly they remembered the horse. They remember what happened with the horse. And Darren got all the laughs. At the moment that happened with the horse, Darren got all the laughs right there. That's the power of an unplanned customization. But it does require you to be very, very aware. Because these little moments, these little gems can happen anywhere in that conference, anywhere in the things that went on before you. Or, if you're really aware, anywhere in the company. If the company has some sort of credo or motto or things that they just say and do, you can make that part of a callback too. That's powerful. Make that a callback and get people to say, oh wow, I know their motto. Okay, great. You have to be a little bit aware of things, but that's an unplanned customization. Planned customizations usually are situations you're interviewing somebody, you're going through it step by step. Unplanned customizations, you have to be really aware of when those lightning strikes happen, those moments of lightning where something happens and you're like, oh, wow, that was a great moment. I'll want to use that later. It requires you to have a very quick mind. Now the thing about it is because there's all sorts of stuff going on, you can't possibly remember everything. You have to remember when you're doing your speech, but it's difficult to remember everything, so it's okay, write it down. Become like a sponge. When you see something funny or interesting going, just write it down. You know, a horse does dump on stage. Just write that down. Keep writing down all the things you think are major events that are notable things. If there's a particular motto, a particular quote you know about, write that down. A company's motto is, a company's quote is. And you can stick all those things in your presentation. Now the challenge is, where do you stick it in the presentation? How do you do it? Make it smooth. That takes a little bit of work, a little bit of adjustment, a little bit of time to make sure you're doing it in a way that's smooth, even, not going to cause any problems. But unplanned customization is, well, it's improv, basically. You're going up there and you're just making, the most important thing in improv is just there's nothing wrong. Just go up there, go with the moment, and you got some ideas, some thought coming through, you know it's something that happened before, just let it go. And if it works, the great thing with unplanned customization is if it really works, see if you can do it again. Record it, write it down afterwards. Oh, that really worked well. Then you can do it in your next speech. Use that to build your speeches. So unplanned customization can also be very powerful, pulling the audience into your speech. The challenge in speaking is how do you pull the audience in and get them involved, get them interested in what you're saying. The best way to do it is to make it personal so the audience thinks, hey, this speech is just for me. If each person in the audience thinks this speech is just for me, you've got a motivator. The same way that people aren't that motivated by saying, hey, someone's house is on fire, much more motivated by saying, your house is on fire. So with a motivational speech, you're trying to get people to do things, motivational speech or otherwise, still trying to get the audience to take an action, saying, well, the audience thinking, well, gee, the guy's really prepared, the gal really knows what they're talking about, isn't as effective as saying, wow, that message is just for me. That gal, that guy, they really understand. They get me, what I'm about. They understand this company. They understand where we are. They know what we value, know what I value. Powerful. Now, to customize a speech, there are pretty much two ways to do it. One is plan customization. Plan customization, a lot of it can be done with interviewing. And you can interview two different ways. One way to interview is just interview for stories. See what sort of stories you can get. Just ask people, what happened to you? How did you get here? What's something you're really proud of? What's a challenge you face? How did you overcome that challenge? Think of it as like an interview, except here the goal, instead of to scare people or to winnow people out, all you want to do is to get those great stories, those great ideas they have, pull them out of them. That's pretty much planned customization. You interview people, get their thoughts and ideas. And you can interview people, get stories. Also interview people to see, hey, who are the problem people? Who are the people who are most likely going to shoot things down, think this is a big waste? Those people. And then interview them. Why was there a waste before? What don't you like about this particular subject? Why is there a problem with it? Interview those people, figure out what their issues are, their problems are, and address that at the front end, and your speech can go much more smoothly because you've got the troublesome people you've dealt with. Now everything else is going to be good. So different approaches, but they do require planning. However, you can't plan for everything. You can't plan for the things that happen. You can't plan if the people you expect to be there aren't there. You got a big thing going where you got a story about Bob Smith, and Bob Smith doesn't show up. That's a problem. Then you have to use unplanned customization. A lot of unplanned customization, we use some form of callbacks, where you notice something going on that works really well previously, and you call back to that thing and mention it in your speech. Just as Darren LaCroix, world champion speaker, noticed that, hey, a horse took a dump on stage. He mentioned in his speech, and all the humor, all the shocked reaction of the horse taking the dump, he got in his speech just by calling back to it. Another thing you can do is take a chance. Take an improv approach. There are no wrong answers. Nothing's wrong. Just go out there and say the things that come to your mind. And see how that works. Unplanned customization. See which things work, what don't. If the audience really is enjoying it, they really like it, they're starting to laugh, they're starting to get into it, whatever it is, stretch that part out a little bit. Add a few more bits. Add a few more things. And if something really works solid, you're set. If it really works solid, then see if you can keep using it. If you can use that bit again over and over in your other speeches. The power of unplanned customization is that allows for future speeches people to come in there and say, hey, this really is working well. Let's use this thing again. And you can get some great stuff with unplanned customization if you're open to it. And once you start doing that, you start customizing your speech, your audience buys in, well, you feel like, hey, I'm in charge here. Yeah, this is going pretty well. You bet. And it's a simple, effective way to really make that connection with the audience. It doesn't take a lot of time, it doesn't take a lot of effort. It's just very simple, very easy thing to do to make that connection. Now, planned customization is pretty simple. Unplanned takes a little bit more work, but still, very simple way to connect. And simple process. Very simple. Planned customization, unplanned. Just be ready, be aware, write down those things when they happen. You'll be fine. and they'll start to enjoy it. If the audience starts to enjoy it, you start to enjoy being up there. It just becomes a lot more pleasant being on stage. So for your next speech, you really want the audience to think, wow, that speech is just for me. Remember, customize, customize, customize.